Welcome to the Lynette Zang YouTube channel, where we support community and sound money globally. Help us build this channel, so please, the best way to do that is to subscribe and hit that bell next to it, and we'll let you know when we're posting another important video. Today, we're going to hopefully debunk some stuff as we transition from one monetary system into another monetary system. And I frankly think that Nigeria is a great place to look at, because while people say, oh, well, that's just happening over there, this can't happen here, I think that there's a lot of value in looking outside of the country, your country of origin, to see what's really happening elsewhere, because it's all a big test to see what they can get away with and to keep you inside of the system to make the transition so that they can maintain control and you lose even more control. So let's just go right in and look at what's happening in Nigeria. Because as we've seen even in the US, right? They raise the interest rates. What happens to spot gold? Spot gold drops, because getting that interest payment is so much more important than actually maintaining your stability, right? Well, I'm telling you right now, it is time to get to safety. And that safety is food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Because these are the things that you and I need to sustain a reasonable standard of living. But let's jump in, because raising rates is supposed to attract fiat currency buyers. But wow, is it going to happen? Let's see. Nigeria's central bank chief faces biggest test yet in the rate call. And what did they do? They raised the rates by a substantial amount, 250 basis points. And yet, look at the inflation. It also hits a 3-decade high. Why isn't this working? Right? Certainly, it sends the economy into a tailspin, because who can afford to borrow at these rates? And that's the problem. All of these fiat money assets are debt-based. So you get to a tipping point, which actually we did in '97, where taking on more debt was no longer actually stimulating to the real economy. All it did was stimulate this money growth, and that is what generates the inflation. They want you to think how could that possibly generate inflation? Well, it's a whole lot more money out there chasing a finite amount of goods, because anything physical, there's a finite amount. So as the inflation is hitting a 3-decade high and Nigeria is raising the interest rates, they put their regime in jeopardy, because when people are hungry and hopeless, they make choices they would not otherwise make. And this could lead to a global revolution, which I think is highly probable. And actually, I'd like it to be a calm revolution. And you know how you do that? You vote with your wallets. You vote with your purses. And you take your wealth outside of the system and you move it to safety, physical, in your possession. Nigeria has cemented its position as Africa's blockchain and Bitcoin leader. So what they're trying to do is create this transition into a digital currency and a digital-backed CBDC. But they rank second globally on the adoption of digital assets last year. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. I don't think it's an accident, because what if all the wealth that's gone into Bitcoin went into spot gold, went into gold? What would that do, right? You would see gold at a substantially higher price. Maybe, maybe not, because they can create as many paper contracts and digital contracts as they want to. But all that really does is hide the true fundamental value of gold. Those that understand that, like, oh, say the central banks that have been accumulating more gold than they ever have historically, right? They understand this, but they don't want the general public to understand it. I want you to understand it. This year, the adoption will continue with enterprise solutions, stablecoins, and regulations set to be among the main trends. Wow. One of the biggest stories we saw was a massive uptake in stablecoins. Well, we've seen that the name implies that their prices are just stable, but haven't we seen a number of them collapse? I've reported on that, so that's true. The mainstream adoption. Okay, so uptake in stablecoins and the mainstream adoption by African businesses and individuals. So what are they doing, right? Now, Nigerian central bank came out with a CBDC, and they have not been able to generate adoption. So rather than changing what they're doing, they're trying to come in like a Trojan horse because they know that stablecoins are being adopted. So they're bringing out the Naira. The stablecoin adoption could spell its doom this year. They're talking about the CBDC. Either way, whether it's a direct CBDC from the Nigerian central bank or it's this stablecoin, they're still attempting to get adoption. The jury is out on whether that will happen, but quite honestly, this gives me a whole lot of hope because we vote with our wallets and our purses, and they can give us, and during the next crisis, that's most likely what's going to happen, is in the U.S. here, we all have those accounts at the Fed, whether we realize it or not. They can just push a button and they can just pump money into the banking system, into your pocket, this new funny money. And every time they do that, though, you have to understand the value of the money out there goes down every single time they do that because there's an unlimited amount of this stuff, but there's a very limited amount of this stuff. And these are both classified as money. The difference is this is under debt and the control of the central banks, and this is globally accepted as real money for thousands of years. So the lack of adoption for what the Nigerian central banks has in mind is what gives me hope because Nigerians are voting, and it's not to the benefit of the central bank. Nigeria springs record rate hike in bid to restore the trust. Big flippin' deal, right? I mean, what are you going to do? Seriously, they've raised the central bank, the interest rates to 22.75%, and yet they're at the highest level of inflation in 3 decades because this is a Ponzi scheme, and not just in Nigeria, but everywhere in the world. This is a Ponzi scheme, and it requires new players, so it requires adoption, and more importantly, it requires confidence. So what are they saying? By raising rates, that's going to restore trust? What? No, the trust is gone. And make no mistake, there's only one layer of trust left, and that's the public. In the U.S. anyway, and in many other countries, that's the public's trust in the system and in the currency. But rapid inflation erodes that trust. And this is a problem for global central banks. That's why they're accumulating all of this gold, because they know that whoever holds the gold retains choices, retains their freedom. And that's what I want for all of us. I definitely do not want those that are in control to continue to have that control. Their central bank, in its first policy meeting since July, announced a supersized increase in interest rates to tackle runaway inflation and stem the collapse of the country's currency. They don't care about the country itself. They don't care about the population and their struggles and how they're starving. They just care that this will save the currency. You know what I think about? I don't care which currency you're looking at. Garbage. This is real money. This is real money. And it doesn't matter what the form is. Gold and silver at its base are monetary. You need to have it in as many forms as you possibly can. This is the most recognizable form. But when the trust is gone, it's almost impossible to get it back. Will raising those rates to 22.75% get it back? I don't think so. I think, frankly, it's too late. But because they have not adopted the CBDC, let's go in the side door. This is the Trojan horse. They will get what they want to the detriment of the population if this gets adopted. I'm going to be paying attention to this, just like we have over in Zimbabwe. But quite honestly, the CNGN, so that is the stable coin being introduced by the Nigerian central bank, is not a substitute for the Naira, which is the central bank digital currency. Oh, it isn't? But according to the blog post, the CNGN token is pegged 1-to-1 to the Nigerian Naira, the country's fiat currency, and it's backed by Naira reserves held in designated commercial banks. Wow, the currency is collapsing. How is this going to be a stable coin? I mean, you almost can't make this stuff up. It's really, frankly, laughable. Do you really think that that's going to instill confidence when the people are experiencing inflation at levels never before seen? I don't think so. And they hit a fresh record low despite that. I mean, this is the fresh record low. And look at, this is an overnight revaluation. Here's another overnight revaluation, and it continues to weaken. So this is all the interest rates, them redoing the interest rates, and it ain't working. It ain't working. It's not working there. It's not going to work here. Ponzi schemes work until that confidence is lost. They're in trouble. This is spot gold. This is the US dollar to the Naira. It's up 882.24% over 10 years. This is spot gold. Again, manipulated, but it's up 1,401.79% over that same time period. What does that tell you? Which would you rather hold? Going into this fight, that battle that we're already in the middle of, there's no avoiding it. What do you want to hold? Because it doesn't matter where you are in the world. They can suppress, they can create as much gold that does not nor ever will exist as they want to, but that doesn't take away the truth. And when they do that overnight revaluation and they take this that has no intrinsic value and is used in one place and they reset it against gold, which is 100% intrinsic value because it is used in every single segment of the global economy. So you have the broadest base of buyer. And yes, they can certainly manipulate this to a degree. The Bank for International Settlements, before they changed the way they accounted for it, I personally saw for every 1 physical ounce of gold that exists in the world, they created 62,000. And that was back in 2009 before the central banks heavily got into the derivatives markets. All the banks are using these derivatives and all of this leverage, and it will blow up in their face. And you have to decide, what do you want to be holding when that happens? This and this is what I want to be holding, along with food, water, energy security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Because you need to be as self-sufficient and independent as possible going into this. And frankly, the best way to do that right now is to grow your local community to make sure that you can meet all of those needs. Because everybody has the gifts that they've been given that they can share. And maybe you don't have gold, but maybe you have skill sets. Those are important too. You can't eat gold, though you can convert it into food that you can eat. So I want you to keep this in mind, that we are in a huge battle right now. You want to be on the losing side where all your wealth gets transferred? Or do you want to win and be in a position to take advantage of this inevitable collapse? So if you want to show your support with us, please give us a thumbs up, like us, leave a comment. That's so important. and subscribe. Hit that bell. We'll let you know when we're issuing the next video. But share, 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 because we know ignorance does not make you immune. It just leaves you vulnerable. Together, there's no doubt in my mind, globally together, we can vote with our wallets and purses. We can take the advantage away from central banks just by doing that. We can make a positive difference and have a voice in what's coming if we come together globally and say no. So until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.